let's look at the fantasy basketball waiver wire. Who's being added and dropped, what should we do with certain players, moves, adds, drops, all of that stuff. Michael Bolton, he's scrounging for the answers.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and no, that's not Mufasa. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Also, check out LockedOnDaily.com and find the best newsletter for your favorite NBA team. Sign up, news delivered straight to your inbox 5 days a week. I know you're ready for a double banger, so let's do it. Let's thumb and comment and listen to audio, watch video, bookmark the trade deadline show, 1 p.m. Eastern for Thursday, February the 6th. We are less than a month away from that happening, so get involved over there. We're going to talk waiver wire. Before I do that, though, I did tweet this out earlier today, and I'll say it now, is that I've been doing this job as a paid full-time job for almost 10 years. And I've made a lot of connections and friends along the way. And a lot of those friends are obviously residing in the United States, and a lot of them live in Los Angeles. So I know that there are plenty of people who are impacted by these fires, which is horrific to see that. And coming from someone like me who lives in a country where disastrous fires strike all the time, thankfully not where I live, but we see the impact of that all the time. Like it's hard to see, and I now know personally many people and friends in the Los Angeles area who are impacted by these fires and have lost, ranging from small things and conveniences to everything. And it's hard to see. So if you are one of those people who is suffering through that, and you are still here watching the show, look, I hope everything is good for you. And main thing is everyone is safe, and that you're able to survive through this difficult period, because it's hard to see for people that I personally know and care about, and seeing what's happening, and then that broader impact of that. It is going to have an impact across the NBA as well. These fires, we've already seen it just now. This happened. Kawhi Leonard is out of today's game for the Clippers against the Nuggets, because they said that to care for people who have had to evacuate. I believe, and our host of the Locked On Clippers podcast, he's been significantly impacted by this fire. I believe he's lost basically all of his things as well, which is obviously horrible for him. But he's like, I know where Kawhi lives, and his house is probably done. So it's going to be the case for many of these players on the Clippers, many of the players on the Lakers, and a lot of other players around the NBA who do have homes and families in the Los Angeles area. So don't be surprised to see this stuff start to crop up over the next day or two, because it's obviously horrific. And again, I just wanted to start with that to say, that all thoughts and care as much as we can go out to the people that are affected, the people that I personally know, the people that I don't personally know in that area, and there is going to be a fantasy impact on this as well. So just be aware of it. Now, let's actually talk about the fantasy basketball waiver wire, and shout out to my choreographer on International Choreographers Day. I wouldn't be able to do the dances that I do without them, and they're really like a genius in being able to get those right moves in, so I can really snap that pussy in hard. So thank you to you and all other choreographers out there. Let's just start off by talking about the most added players. We're going to use our three sources, Basketball Monster, Yahoo, and Fantrax. The 6 most added players over the last 48 hours on Basketball Monster. Number 1 is Triple H, Jaime Jaquez Jr., who has had 2 really solid games. And you know my thoughts on him. He has had plenty of opportunities with Butler out. He has failed in most of them. He has been good the last 2 games. He is fine to have for now, and I think you probably should have him for now. But if and when Butler is traded, somebody is coming back, and that does not mean that Jaquez just becomes Butler. It does not mean that he gets Butler's minutes, because if, again, we use the example, if it is Bradley Beal that comes back, you know who gets Jimmy Butler's role in minutes? Bradley Beal, not Jaime Jaquez. Cool. The second most added player is Bryce Sensabaugh. They added him for yesterday's game. He did not play, and I'm assuming that he is going to be turfed out pretty quickly. Ryan Dunn is the third most added player on Basketball Monster over the last 48 hours. He has absolutely no business being a long-term 12-team league player, but with the 5 games this week, and I guess people reacting to the fact that he was starting, I get it. Use him now, that's no problem. There's 3 games left in the next 5 days for the Suns. No other team has more than that, obviously, so that puts him on par with other guys. But when we're talking about dropping someone for a stream, if you've got Ryan Dunn and you drop someone to get 3 games in, what are you gaining? A better player, perhaps, but it's not a real big games advantage. He will become a very clear drop soon. Kelly Oubre, the 4th most added player with Paul George out and Oubre's minutes locked in pretty high. I get it. I don't think he's going to necessarily be there all season, but whatever. Naji Marshall also playing some pretty good basketball, and I talked about him yesterday. Yeah, it was a bad shooting night, but if he just shot like 45%, it was a totally fine line. Roster him. The last one is Toumani Camara, which I don't really get. Like he's fine. He's okay. He shouldn't be the most added player. He should be just sort of streamed in when necessary. He's the Timberwolves. He's the Trailblazers version of the Timberwolves, Jaden McDaniels, of Patrick Williams, of Andrew Nembhard, of every one of those streaming level players. That is what Toumani Camara is, but whatever. The most added players, and I try not to double up on these as much as I can, the most added players on Yahoo, which uses a 24-hour, or I don't even know if it's 24 hours. I think they just have a cutoff of here is the day. So their cutoff is Pacific time, midnight, 3 a.m. Eastern, and so their reporting periods are from then. So that's like less than 24 hours. Number 1 is Gershon Yabusele, most added player there on Yahoo. That is because Embiid is out. That is the only reason you'd want him on a 12-team roster. The second most added player is really interesting. It's Day'Ron Sharpe. Now, Sharpie has been very good the last 2 games. I don't mind a stream of him. It's largely been a blowout situation and limiting Claxton's minutes and a bunch of players out. He's not playing alongside Claxton. So you're going to, much like the Khalil Ware stuff in Miami, you're going to want to believe that Claxton's a 24-minute player and that Clowney only plays power forward, and maybe that's the case. So it's interesting. We'll see where it goes. The third most added player is a clear example of chasing Tim Hardaway Jr. Guys, you don't get that game. He has started literally every game this season that he's been available, and he's been not even close to a top 150 player, but he has 1 game where he scores 26 points with 6 threes. Everyone rushes to add him. You don't get it. You don't get the game. You don't get that added to your stats. This is not to say that he can't have a stretch of good games. It's not. But the reactivity of fantasy managers is always something that amuses me. Because he's like, yes, Jaden Ivey is out, so that gives him 1 to 2 extra minutes and a couple of extra shots, but still. Shaedon Sharpe, the 4th most added player, didn't actually realize that he was still rostered in so few leagues. He's only at like 41% of... He's up to 43 now. Which, again, I'm not the biggest Shaedon Sharpe guy, especially from fantasy. His game is limited, but didn't think he'd be registering there. That's okay. I guess that's because he got 14... What was it? 14, 8, and 8 or 19, 8, and 8 last game? Isaiah Williams, most added player, 5th most added guy in Brooklyn. While there's a bunch of guys out, I like it. When those guys come back, I think it'll be iffy. I'd like to see 29 minutes from him, but he's doing okay at the moment. And the last one is his teammate, who is getting the big minutes and is getting a lot of shots, and that's Keon Johnson. It is still going to be hard for him to do it when Thomas and Russell and Johnson all play, and Simmons, but they're not, so it doesn't matter. You just roll with it for now, and we deal with it later on. On Fantrax, which uses a 7-day reporting period, Quentin Grimes and Jaden Hardy, the top 2 ads there. Grimes is playing really well. You know that I've been a Grimes acolyte for a long time, and we're getting the opportunity now. He just should be on rosters. Jaden Hardy is a deeper league player to look at. Keon Ellis, interesting that he pops up as the 3rd most added player. There's a lot of talk at the moment about, wow, Doug Christie's figured it out. Look at that. All you need to do is play Keon Ellis. It's great. But I'd love to actually see what happens when they're healthy, because Doug Christie did not play Keon Ellis in the game that they were healthy. And Keegan went down, played Keon. Fox went down, played Keon. Fox went down, played Keon. So what happens? Does he find him 28 minutes? Does he start him over DeRozan or Monk? Or does he play him 24 minutes in a reserve role? I don't know. Yes, adding him is totally fine, but let's save the Danish backhanders on Doug Christie's basketball acumen and figuring out the answer to unlock Sacramento when he actually has to make a decision of how he plays Keon. The 4th most added player, and I did not think I'd be talking... Why is Tosan Ebwamwan the 4th most added player? Do you even know who Tosan Evbonwan plays for? He was on the Pistons as a two-way guy last season, and now he is on the Nets. They just waived Jalen Martin and signed Tosan Evbonwan to a two-way contract. He's a small forward, power forward that was I think Princeton. He's like a point forward guy. He's a rebounding, undersized power forward. Why? Anyway, the fifth most added player is Bub Carrington. He's on a nice little run. Brogdon's out, Poole's out, Kuzma's dealing with stuff. That's totally okay. His usage is low, but it is a nice little run from Carrington. And the next one is little Chungus Nikola Jovic, who, again, is playing well. We cannot trust Spo's rotation. Literally looked 2 games ago when he played 23 minutes. But prior to that, he's on a good run of games. I don't mind him, especially in 14s. He's a clear ad in 14s, Jovic. But in 12s, I think we're all right. That most added period or this section of the show took a while. There's a lot of names for us to get through. I hope that part was good and in depth. We're going to come back and talk about dropped players and injury replacements and hot players, all that stuff in a sec. When we do that, though, or before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Going to events, sports, music, theatre, comedy, whatever it is, it's something that we love to do. It's one of our favourite activities to do with friends or even alone, because we love seeing these entertainment products live, and Game Time has made it even easier to get those tickets to the events that you want to go and see with Game Time picks. It filters out the fluffs. It filters out the fluff, and it shows you the good options, the best options, so you're not wasting your time or money. They've also got the app's all-in pricing, so that when you go in there, you don't get surprised with extra fees at checkout. The price that you see is the price that you pay with all-in pricing. Game Time Picks is unbelievable, and it takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. You can feel more prepared and you can be performing at your best. And Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. It offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. You don't have to worry about uncomfortableness at the doctor's or going to the pharmacy. You can get everything delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you get trusted care from a real US clinical team. It's quick, you get 100% online consultation, and you can get a free prescription today. So visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Rocket RX. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That is rocketrx.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX. Better sex made simple. All right. Let's do a little bit more waiver wire work. The most dropped players. I'm not going to spend as much time on these ones as I did with the most added players. The number one there is Tristan da Silva, and like I talked about yesterday or the day before, Paolo Banchero is likely returning on Thursday. So yeah, moving off of him makes complete sense. He's already wildly inconsistent. His role is going to shrink dramatically, and he's just not good enough to be a hold. So that is an easy call on Tristan da Silva. The second one there is Scooter Henderson. They're just not playing him. They'll play him in some games. It's not enough. Yeah, you might stash him, but again, that is an individual preference scenario based on your league settings and where you are in the standings. It's not a guarantee. Move on. Elkin Brogdon's hurt, so we drop. That's the easiest discussion you'll have. Dylan Brooks. Yes, Dylan Brooks had a really strong run. Dylan Brooks struggled, and in the last game, he barely played. That's okay. Move on. Not a guy you need to roster. You can do it when it's rolling well and when the schedule plus situation's in effect, but otherwise move on. Actually, people have listened to me about Khalil Ware, and they've dropped him. Good. Now I just need people to do it about Rui Hachimura. Khalil Ware, I like. Khalil Ware is the Heat's backup center, and he's going to play limited minutes, and he has absolutely no business being on a 12-man roster. None at all. Not even close. And this is where I think we can get advantages, and this is not everyone, because there are people who still listen to the show who think this. But like when the Jimmy Butler news about the trade came out, people's replacement idea was, man, I've got to add Khalil Ware now that Jimmy Butler's going down. Okay. There's no logic whatsoever in that sort of a decision, and that's where you get the advantage, I think, by the way that I try to break things down, but more importantly, to give you my perspective on how things work. And that's part of what this is being able to talk and have fun and analyze and provide information and tools and reasoning and that sort of stuff, because that never made any sense to be able to, let's grab Khalil Ware because Jimmy Butler's gone. Nope. But you save yourself an ad of a player that's not going to do anything. And secondly, you might be able to swoop in on the player that got dropped for the guy that added Khalil Ware and get someone that's actually useful. Trey Lyles also been dropped. Lyles had a bit of a run when Kyle, that's not his name, Keegan Murray was out, and he played pretty well, but now we move on. Really simple transaction. The most dropped players on Yahoo, the top 2 names on this list are pretty weird because they were 2 of the most added players. And number 1 is Ryan Dunn, and I just talked about that. Is Ryan Dunn a 12-team league guy? No chance. Not even close. But I'm guessing if you added Ryan Dunn, you added him for the 5-game week. You added him because he started, and he played the back-to-back, and he wasn't particularly strong. But like I said, if you switched him out for somebody else now, unless you're just going to use that roster spot and churn it every single day, which is a possibility to do, which you can do, and I'm actually on board with that. If you're going to do that and drop him after the first 2 games and then get a Wednesday, Thursday back-to-back in, actually the problem with this is you don't... Oh, no, you can. You get a Wednesday, Thursday back-to-back in. You get someone in on Friday because there's no Friday, Saturday back-to-back, and then you do a Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. You can get 5 games out of that one roster spot. But if you're just doing a 1-for-1 swap, it doesn't make massive sense this week. Naji Marshall dropped. This is, again, where I think part of the value I think that we try to bring on this show is that people drop Naji Marshall because what do you have, like 6 points or something? But the shot attempts were fine. The minutes were good. The rebounds were good. The assists were good. The defensive stats were good. All he did was shoot 20%. So dropping that after that game, not the right move. Jerami Sohan got dropped. You absolutely wouldn't do that. What are we up to? What are you doing? No. Grayson Allen getting dropped. Just copy and paste what I said about Dunn, except Allen's a better player, fantasy-wise. Dennis Schroeder getting dropped. I'm actually 100% behind that. And Bryce Sensabaugh getting dropped. Also 100% behind it. He had a couple of good, really fluky games, and now he is ill, and you don't hold on to players like that. The most dropped player on Fantrax over the last 7 days is Dunn as well. But it's the different Dunn. It's Chris Dunn. Now, with Kawhi being out, maybe Dunn actually does get a reprieve here, and you can stream him in to get defensive stats. And I probably would consider that on Wednesday, but of course that wasn't known when these drops were made on Fantrax. Jaden Ivey, the next one, easy drop. Obviously, probably out for the season. This 4 to 6 week nonsense is just, I believe, complete nonsense. Johnny Concha, Derek Jones. Well, Derek Jones, the same boat as Chris Dunn. You could maybe restream him in. Johnny Concha, easy drop. Noah Clowney, one of the most dropped players on Fantrax. And Fantrax houses a lot of Dynasty Leagues, so I didn't expect to see Clowney that high up. Yeah, he's not doing a huge amount. I want to see what happens with him. Does he start again today? Because he took the most shots on the team in the last game. And I do think we will get a big game at some point, but I totally understand not holding him. The production is not there. And the last one is, again, let's look at the reverse shade and sharp. Why is Chris Boucher being dropped in this many leagues to register on this list? Yeah, he's an easy drop, but how was he rostered in that many spots? Oh well. Now we look at must roster players. Again, I'm using a small sort of sample here, about 2 weeks, and a lot of these guys I don't believe you need to be looking at as long-term guys, and even in the short term, I'm not 100% sure of where their value is going to lie, but they're worth grabbing, it's worth using, and it's worth just seeing what happens with some of these players in the very, very short term, and that's why I've got Jaime Jaquez at the top there. You know I don't believe in it long term. I don't even really massively believe in it short term, but it's 2 solid games in a row. Let's do it. His steal rate is one of the big things that's improved this season. Everything else has sort of declined, but if, and Spo can do this, lean into something in the short term, and he is doing it now. It doesn't mean he will continue to do it, but he is leaning into it now, and you use that while it's happening. Same with Kelly Oubre. He's had some incredibly low usage games that get floated by some steal numbers, but Paul George is out. Embiid, the Sixers are claiming it. They want him to play back-to-backs now. They can see that happening, can they? He's not even playing non-back-to-backs. Settle down. Anyway, Kelly Oubre, big opportunity at the moment. Doesn't mean it lasts. Yves Missi. I'm extremely worried about what happens to Missi when both Trey and Zion play, which literally could be the next game. Not today, Wednesday. They're both out Wednesday. But you know my thoughts on Missi, that I hate the fit with Zion. And when they get the full complement of guys back, not even including Ingram, he's the 6th guy, so he doesn't get to play as much or do as much. So for now, sure, while we work out the uncertainty around Zion, around Murphy, around Ingram, but long term, not sure, not necessarily. Naji Marshall, Quentin Grimes. While Kyrie and Luka are both out, they just should be on rosters. There's going to be ups and downs for both of them, but that's okay. And the last name there is Keon Ellis, like I detailed earlier. I have no idea what Doug Christie is going to do. None. Don't know what he's going to do when those guys return, or when Fox returns. But that's okay. We have him, we use him, and we adjust, and we can cry about it later. But for now, we enjoy what we're getting out of him and move from there. We're going to come back and talk about droppable guys, injury replacement plays. But today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate College Basketball HC. I know that you guys love constructing rosters and teams. That's why we're playing fantasy basketball. So if you've dreamed of doing that from a college basketball perspective, well, there's a new mobile game out I think you're going to love, and that is Ultimate College Basketball HC. You control every detail of the program, recruiting players, coaching staffs, training camps you can set up overseas. You've got NIL deals, scholarships. I don't know what happens if you go and choose you're going to be at BYU. Do you get to cancel scholarships for premarital activities? Maybe. We'll see what level of detail we get into this in this game. But also when you got the games, you get to draw up offensive plays. You set your strategy. And that sets the course of your program for now and the future to help build your coaching legacy. And if you are listening here, well, you are. So go and download the game. But I've got a code for it. It's Locked On CBB. And that enables you in the game store to get a free boost for your program. It's a great way to start off your coaching career. So download Ultimate College Basketball HC. Go to ultimate-cbb.com or look it up on the App Store. Ultimate College Basketball HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Okay. Let's finish off this waiver wire show by now going into guys that are droppable. What does it mean? You know what it means. I hope you know what it means by now, but if you're a new viewer, welcome. Good to see you guys here. This just means that if they're on your roster and you're looking at what to do on the waiver wire and streaming or whatever, you go, do I need to? Do I need to hold this guy? That's what it means. Does it mean just go and drop recklessly? No. Does it mean you just have to get rid of them? You'd rather have nobody on your team? No. It means that when they're on your roster, you can look at it and go, maybe I don't need this guy. Because that's really important for one of those guys in the middle of this list. Number one there is Jerami Grant. It's easy, right? He's not good when he plays. He's not playing. He won't play at the end of the season. If he gets dropped and then he comes back and he plays okay minutes, then re-add him, and it doesn't matter if you miss out on Jerami Grant, is my thought on this. He's not even a top 100 guy. The bloke never rebounds, passes, steals, blocks. His shooting's been off this season, and he's not playing. The upside's not good enough. The theoretical version of Jerami Grant, which everyone loves to parrot out there, doesn't exist. But if it did exist, it's great. It just doesn't exist. So don't hold him. Jabari Smith, he's out for years. He's not. He's out for weeks. His play had already tailed off anyway. Easy drop. The next one is the one that really does encapsulate the ideas of this list, and that's Tyus Jones. Understand this. As with any piece of advice or information you get given, you listen to, or even you give to yourself, where am I coming from? What's the position? What's the bias? I did not believe the Suns needed Tyus Jones. Yes, they had some turnover problems, but ideally, when he plays on this team, he does not have the ball in his hands because Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker exist. So what is he doing? Standing around to be a spot-up guy, not good at it. Standing around to be a defender, not that good at it. Getting cheap assists? Yes. So what was the point of him? And Mike Budenholzer sort of sat the last two games and gone, yeah, maybe. Now, he did have an illness, so I don't know if they're keeping his minutes down for that, but we have seen a transition to Devin Booker playing a lot of full-time point guard. I don't think that you have to drop Tyus Jones right now. But like I said, if you are in a shallow format, if you're in a squeeze-type scenario where you go, man, I really need to make a call here, is Tyus Jones' upside? But he doesn't turn it over. That's cool, but if he doesn't do anything else good, what's the point of that? I don't think that I put him on this list just to bring you the idea, to bring it into your head that, hey, don't look at him as an ironclad must-hold. That's more what this is. Not like there are certain players, like we had this discussion about Trey Murphy earlier in the season where people go, man, I need to drop him. You're struggling. No, you don't. You don't drop him. What are you doing? You hold him under all circumstances. Right? That was that one. And this one, if you're having that wavering thought, okay, yeah, I get it. You probably can, and you'll be fine. You don't have to, and you probably shouldn't just yet. But we are... the other name I could have put there is Peyton Pritchard, who I think is sort of a step behind Jones in terms of how quick we get to that zone. We're not there yet. But this is trending quickly in the wrong direction for Tyus. I got Jaden McDaniels there. That's easy. He's just rostered in too many spots, and he doesn't need to be. The next one, obviously, we don't want Dick. Well, again, I speak for myself. You might have a different idea about that, but we don't need him. There's no need for Grady on our teams when you've got Barrett, Quickly, Barnes. He's a points and threes guy who doesn't get enough shots. He's not efficient enough. Bye. Easiest drop ever. The last one is Yusuf Nurkic. Like Tyus Jones, his minutes are down. Nurkic didn't really have a period of his minutes going up, though. Yeah, is he better than Mason Plumlee? I believe he is. Is he a better fit with the starters? I also believe he is because you know what he can do? Space the floor. Is he good at it? No, but at least he does it. Is he a good defender? Not really. Is Plumlee? Also not really. I don't think he's necessarily going to be starting back again. I think we probably see a minute split between Nurkic and Plumlee. But that's okay, because I don't think he's getting enough minutes regularly to be a must-roster guy. And if that changes, I'm not sure there's going to be a huge rush on re-adding Jusuf Nurkic onto teams. Let's talk about some hot players. These are all top 100 guys over the last week. Scottie Pippen Jr., you may have been disappointed with some of his production with Ja Morant out, but he's the 50th ranked player. That's pretty good, yeah. He is just a must-roster player. Max Christie, I was a little shocked to see that Christie was the 80th ranked player over the last week. He, to me, is in the streamy sort of an area, a Schedule Plus type of a guy. But also, with those numbers, that's great. If you've got him in a 12-team league. Now, I believe one of those games may have been inflated by an Anthony Davis absence, but whatever. Christie's okay to roster. You don't have to roster him. He is totally okay to do it, though. And, yeah, I think he's more streamy than anything. Jalen Wells, also top 90 over the last week. Didn't see that one coming. That's per-game numbers as well. So it's not like we're talking about he's just got a volume boost or anything along those lines. Yeah, he's like streamy. He's deeper league stuff. That's a good rank, but doesn't matter. Al Horford's ranked 90th. No, you don't hold him. The Celtics have also got a very, very low schedule period coming up here, so no, you don't roster him. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 92nd. Absolutely starting to play well. The return of Banchero probably hurts him somewhat, so I think he's borderline with what you do there. And then Luke Kennard, 94th, who's also had some really good games. I do still prefer Pippen over Kennard, but while these guys are out, at least in streaming terms, Kennard, the Duck, has some value. These are some injury replacement guys. We've talked Grimes. We've talked Marshall. We haven't talked Spencer Dinwiddie, who started in the last game, which made a lot more sense. And while Irving and Doncic are out, I think that Spencer needs to be on rosters. Long term, no. And it's amazing to me that he's actually playing, but that's where we're at. I've got both Champagnies there because Justin Champagnie has an opportunity with Kuzma, Poole, and Brogdon all banged up. And yeah, maybe it's Kispert, maybe it's George. I don't have great long-term hopes for either Champagnie. But injuries have opened it up in Washington and in San Antonio with Jeremy Sohan missing. I don't know if Sohan misses more than the one game. I'd be okay with having a look at Champagnie, Julian, in that position. But that's about it. With Jonathan Kuminga out, we thought there might be a bump for Trayce Jackson-Davis. And in the first game, he played 17 minutes and it was horrendous. But last game, he got 35. I don't think Trayce Jackson-Davis is a 35-minute and I player. Not even close to it. I don't think he's anywhere near good enough to be doing that. But he got it. And he just needs to be on rosters for now. Peyton Watson had a really good game last time out. Aaron Gordon was out. I think largely the value there of Watson came because Jokic was also out and they needed a backup center because Dario Saric, guess what, not it. Watson's at least streamable for defensive stats. And the last one there again, this is really desperation, single category stuff. But Isaiah Collier, he might be the NBA's worst player. Someone said he's not the worst player just because Johnny Davis exists. And you're right, touche. But with no Keontae George, with no Jordan Clarkson, Collier's going to start, and honestly, anyone who can get you 8 or 9 assists at least has to be mentioned. Now, he might have 3 points, and that is not even exaggeration. That is literally 3 points on 7 shots. He might do that consistently, but he might have 7 rebounds and 9 assists and 2 steals. So it's working it into the right team and the right scenario and where you need him, just not one to be completely waved off because he's horrendous, because those assists and some steals and rebounds can be really valuable. The last thing I'll talk about is just 6 other names. Mason Plumlee, we already talked a little bit about the cockroach there. Good rebounds in the last game, but unless he gets 25 minutes, I don't care in 10 or 12 team leagues. 14 teamers, I get it. The 3 games left this week makes the volume marginally interesting, but I'm still not going to be super into that. The big Ragu, Dante DiVincenzo, that's just a guy that needs to be rostered. He's still not shooting well, but the minutes are enough. I believe he should be on all rosters. Taurean Prince, I'm going to get this question now because the Bucks announced that Chris Middleton for the foreseeable future will come off the bench because Darvin Ham's son Taurean needs to start. Do you add Taurean Prince? Absolutely not. Not even close. 10s, no. 12s, no. 14s, no. 16s, maybe. Maybe look at the artist in 16-team leagues. But Prince is Prince. He'll hit some threes. He'll get a steal. He'll have 2 shots a game, which is okay. Does it help Middleton? It probably does help Middleton get a little bit more ball handling and a little bit more usage, which, again, there's been a debate coming up recently about usage with the Celtics and Missoula and journalists there, and there can be some different definitions of what usage is, but the traditional usage number that you see that is shown around everywhere, just in case you guys don't know what it is, usage means what percentage of possessions do you end when you're on the court? That is all it is. And there's only 3 ways to end a possession. A shot, a free throw attempt, or a turnover. That's it. It's the only ways you can end a possession. Average usage is 20%. 5 blokes on the court, 20% average. That's what usage is. So Taurean Prince is going to have extraordinarily low usage, but Middleton's usage might rise in the second unit. But I also think he won't hit 30 minutes. They'll keep him sort of, I guess part of it is trying to get the right mix, but he might only play 27. We're still holding Middleton though. I'm just going to put this name here because why are we why? What are you guys doing?
Get that garbage out of here.
It's Rui Hachimura. Please, stop it. I don't know. No, that's not true. I was going to say, I know people are doing it to spite me because that's not true. Because not enough people listen to me to have his roster percentage as high as it is. They just don't. So why are you holding him? Get him out of here. Klay Thompson, I'm going to leave Goga to last, but Klay Thompson's on this list. Kyrie, Luka are out. Klay's doing nothing. Like, he's still not good. He is actually officially washed, I think. If you're in a shallow format, 10s, you don't need to roster him even with these guys out. In 12s, I probably would, but he just still looks like a Malik Beasley. A slightly better Tim Hardaway. Like, he's worse than Quentin Grimes. So, I don't think he's must roster. The other name there is Goga. And yes, Goga's been great. And yes, we're holding Goga. But I am a little worried that when Paolo returns, literally next game, that the spacing that Wendell Carter Jr. can provide and does provide, and his switchability is something they might go back to. We have seen Wendell's minutes ramp up. We've seen Goga push down in the last game. I don't think it'll happen immediately, but I think within a week, there is a 50-50 chance that Goga is back in a bench role behind Wendell Carter playing 21 minutes a night, and 21 minutes a night for Goga will not be enough. It might not happen, but I think that we have to look at it this way and think that the ability for Goga to be a 29-minute a night center with Paolo back is decreased. It's decreased. Or decreased, depending on how you want to say that word. And I don't know why I said decreased, because I never would say that in my life. But that's okay. The Waiver Wire show is over. We're going to come back with a preview of Thursday's games later on in the day. In the meantime, so you don't miss out, you bang it, you bell it, you thumb it, you comment it, and you listen on the audio side as well. But the thing that I want you guys to do is, number one, go and thank your choreographer. They do tireless work. Go and do that. And secondly, thank yourself. Pay attention to the things that you do that are good, not just the bad things. It's very easy to sit there, hit yourself in the head, go, why would I do that? I'm so stupid. That's easy to do, right? That's easy to do. Easy to drag down than to build up. I'm not saying to self-fluff all the time. I'm the best. No one can touch me. That's garbage as well. But understanding that we do good and bad. And instead of a 95-5, let's make it 15-85 in terms of how we focus. And let's just build it up. Encourage ourselves, because if you're relying on somebody else to do it, you're going to be lacking. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Slay.